Really the biggest mistake I've seen is like every new thing that comes up, it's like, oh, I can handle it. I got this bonus. I got this raise. But in reality, those things add up and they could very easily start to be a lot more than what that bonus or raise.
This is Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp, where I help tech professionals in their 20s and 30s balance a great life today without sacrificing their future possibilities. I'm your host, Lucas Caceres, certified financial planner and founder of Level Up Financial Planning, where I help educate, coach, and build strategies with my clients to help them take their financial confidence to the next level.
Disclaimer alert. This information's for education, so don't just go use it. First consult with your financial advisor, because that's way more legit. That's it.
That was Orlando Gomez, and you can catch him in season 3, episode 4 on how he broke into tech by writing a jingle.
Hello, thanks for joining Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp. Today, I'm going to be talking about what is the real value of that bonus, that raise. Maybe it's stock options that you're receiving. And the reason for that is because it's very tricky. It's very confusing when you see these awesome big numbers that you see associated with those things. And the reality is you're not going to receive that full amount. And that's because of taxes. We're going to go through a couple examples. But first, like the reason why we run into this is because these tax brackets are different depending on where your income's falling. And so you might have to look at this every single year as your income's fluctuating, as you're taking different opportunities, as you might have multiple income sources at once sometimes and have to figure out, well, how do we figure out what your true tax rate is? But at the end of the day, the reason why that is going to be drastically less than what that gross amount is, whether it's that bonus, raise, or stock options, because of the taxes. Federal taxes is the big one. State income taxes can also be big depending on what state you're in. Then there's some states that don't have any tax withholding, which is a nice feature for my clients in those states. So you'll want to make sure you're aware of both of those. Those are really the big needle movers and really where a lot of the taxes go to. Social Security could potentially be a large one as well. But if your income is over $176,100 for 2025, your income above that number, you'll actually stop paying into Social Security. So that's important to be aware of. I definitely have clients that get surprised if they're not familiar with being in those higher income tax brackets when Social Security falls off their paycheck. And then come January, they're surprised when it jumps back on there. And it's like, holy smokes, this feels a little bit tighter than it was back in November and December once they stopped paying into Social Security. So Social Security is 6.2%. Definitely want to be aware of that one if you're under that limit, and that's going to apply towards this new money that you're looking at, whether it's that bonus, raise, or RSU, stock option type situations. But there's also Medicare tax. And so those are all of them. You want to find out what all those numbers are and then start to run the calculation there. And now a quick message from our nonprofit sponsor, Underdog Devs.
Underdog Devs is a nonprofit that can help people incarcerated or from lower socioeconomic background to become a software engineer. We make sure the money goes directly to expand access to people who maybe wouldn't get access. Once you're part of Underdog Devs, then you have the ability to sign up for Project Underdog. That's where you get your bills paid for 4 months, surround you with mentors, you get pair programming all week. And we try to get you at a point where you're not having to work, you can focus on studying. If you want to support us, we have lots of different ways. Volunteering, through like hardware or computers, or financially. We have our website, underdogdevs.org. You can reach out through there.
So next we'll talk about the mistakes I see that folks run into and how to avoid them. So first one is just not keeping track of the dollar amounts. Maybe we're looking at a $20,000 bonus and that's awesome. That's great. We kind of might know in the back of our heads, some of that's going to get taxed. And so we'll definitely want to run through the numbers, and I'll have a calculator or resource that you'd be able to tap into and use to run those numbers yourself. But with 20,000, even with the taxes, what I've seen people do is they just don't think about all of the things adding up. And whenever there's a new thing that they typically wouldn't have done in the past, so maybe this is a change in lifestyle, maybe this is just new goals that are popping up, something comes up and you're like, I don't know about the math. I'm not going to really do the math, but I just got this $20,000 bonus. I can probably handle it. And you say that to multiple things in a short period of time, and you're not really keeping track of it. It's very easy for you to overshoot what that actual bonus was or what that raise was. And so that's really the biggest mistake I've seen is like every new thing that comes up, it's like, oh, I can handle it. I got this bonus. I got this raise. But in reality, those things add up and they could very easily start to be a lot more than what that bonus or raise was. And so you want to definitely keep track of the things that you're saying yes to and be intentional about it too, because you might actually be better off saving a portion of that. And you know your financial situation better than I do. Unless you're a client, then we can definitely have that conversation and where I'm pretty in tune with your goals. But definitely my recommendation there is just be very intentional. If there's things that we know that we need to catch up on, whether it's retirement contributions, saving for travel, maybe we've been putting travel off. Maybe there's big events coming up like a wedding or a home purchase. Like put these important things first, be intentional about it, and then set the dollar amount that we know is going to be needed to go towards that item and be very intentional about it. Now we know that 20,000 is no longer 20,000 because of taxes. And then we also take out the important goals. And then even the extra stuff that maybe we don't know what it's going to apply towards, let's set that in a separate account and just know when things come up, we'll pull from that account and that account will be very specific and we'll know, well, what is the value in there? And we'll see that value come down as we start to say yes to those different things that tend to pop up. And you're like, yep, of course, I got a bonus, I got a raise, I can handle it. Well, that account could be very transparent as far as, well, is there still any money of that left over to be saying yes to those things that come up? So being intentional, making sure you have clear dollar amounts visible to you and knowing where those things are going, and definitely prioritize the high value stuff first as you're being intentional with your funds. Kind of similar, but a little different mistake I've seen with bonuses in particular is, well, bonuses don't tend to come every single paycheck or every single month. Sometimes they could be annually, sometimes they're semi annually, maybe they're quarterly. This can apply when it comes to things like that. So the biggest mistake I see with bonuses when it's like, oh, there's a huge amount of money that's just going to kind of drop in your lap is folks will make bigger commitments than what that bonus is. So if you got a $20,000 bonus, for example, and that falls in your lap in January and you're like, okay, yep, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna treat myself. And what if you go and buy $100,000 car? And it might seem like an extreme example, but there's lots of folks that do similar things, or maybe those things are multiple stuff. Like maybe it's 10 different things that you do that add up over time. But really the tricky part is, well, that 20,000 isn't 100,000, right? You're making a commitment, you're making a decision that, hey, I'm probably going to continue to get this type of money so I can handle this for the next 4 or 5 years doing the same type of thing because hopefully this bonuses will still come. Well, there's no guarantees there with the bonus. So that's really where mistake number one comes in is you're definitely changing your lifestyle and changing your lifestyle commitments on the financial standpoint, especially in the situation of a car where it's like, yeah, you probably have a loan because what's with the other 80,000? We're trying to pay that off over 4 or 5 years. And you're making a 5 year commitment on the bonus that you just received now. And that bonus is already gone, right? For down payment on that guy. And so that's really brutal if something were to happen, bonus doesn't work out, unemployment situation arises. And yes, it might be recurring, but there's a lot of reasons and ways that it could not be recurring there. So a lot of times what I'd like to see bonuses used for is going to be like one-time special things like, oh, well, we have this wedding coming up where it's not like I'm going to get married every year. Maybe it's for a purchase on a home down payment. Maybe it's just to catch up on retirement accounts. And so if a lot of those funds go towards something that is really defined into kind of one situation and not creating forced lifestyle increase every single month, every single year moving forward, because those are the things that where your lifestyle creep really can hamper your ability to navigate unique stuff like a layoff, which I'm seeing a lot of clients having to navigate right now, unfortunately. And now a quick message from our nonprofit sponsor, Tech by Choice.
Tech by Choice is a nonprofit that's focused on helping underrepresented groups understand, thrive in tech. Our main goal is to be a community that you don't need a code switch in order to learn what you need to thrive in tech. And so we do workshops for skill building. We talk about financial literacy. We also talk about mental health and what to do if you run into discrimination in the workplace. Any donations, if you go to techbychoice.org/donate, you'll get all of the details on how you can give to the organization. Things as little as like $5 really help us go. The other way that you can get involved and help Tech by Choice is to volunteer. We are always looking for mentors, and we're looking for people to help out with some of our resume review events. And just supporting the community by even joining and answering questions in our Slack is always really helpful. And then if you have any connections for us to get those sponsorship deals and connect with larger companies and get out there in the tech streets, I'm always open to that as well. So there's a lot of different ways to help.
So with that, I think the main point I'm trying to drive home is I get clear on where your income is after all the taxes are applied. So just where is it? How much is it really yours after we factor in the taxes? And then get intentional with what you actually want to do with the money to make sure you're getting the most value out of it, making sure that you're building the life you actually want to create and not allow the money to kind of drag you along and confuse you about how you're doing financially. Because if I've known anything out of the clients that I work with is there's a huge benefit of getting out of that anxiety that even making a lot of money can cause, because we don't know if we're making the best decisions. We don't know if we're doing the right things we should be, especially with kind of a job market right now where it's like, it's unsettling. We don't know exactly. We don't feel like we have total control. Or maybe even for a lot of my clients right now, it's like, yeah, I'm good at what I do. I could easily have a job if I want to, but I really don't want to have to deal with whatever it is, kind of work dynamics, management dynamics, whatever those things are. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you can do these things, but you really want to have more control over your financial situation. That's where getting clear on your money is going to help a ton as far as understanding, well, what does it really mean? What does it really translate to in order for you to reach and achieve your goals? And yeah, just being intentional with your money, whether it's your base salary, the bonus, the raises, the stock options. If you really take control of that, you'll be able to enjoy it and spend money where you want, but know and have peace of mind that, hey, I am doing the right thing. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And just for an example, I am going to do a screen share, and obviously this is a podcast. So you're not seeing this if you're not watching the video version, but I'll do a quick example of a $20,000 pay increase for someone that is in the 24% mark rate bracket for federal. Here in Colorado, the state tax is about 4%. So I'm choosing 4% here. Social Security is 6.2%. Again, that only applies if your income is lower than the $176,100. Then Medicare, which is 1.45%. And if you kind of see in this drop down, it actually can jump to a higher number. So after your income crosses a significantly higher number, then it jumps to 5.25%. At that point, Social Security does fall off. So it's not as brutal as it sounds, but it's something to be aware of when you're using this tool, or just making sure that you're doing the calculations correctly on your end. So a $20,000 pay increase sounds amazing. It's really fantastic. But once you factor in these tax situations, it's really a real increase of $12,870. So not quite 20,000. It's almost half of that, right? And really quickly, I have clients that are in higher tax brackets and they're in California. And so let's say a larger number. So they're in a higher tax bracket. Usually higher base salaries means that when you get bonuses, those are higher typically. So let's say a big amount, 40,000 happens as far as a bonus. They're in the 33% marginal tax rate. They're in California. And so their state marginal tax rate is 9%. So their income is higher than that Social Security limit I mentioned. So they're not going to be paying any additional Social Security, but they're going to be paying higher Medicare because they crossed that other limit. So you can see really quickly that a bonus of 40,000 for a high income earning individual or filing jointly in a state with high income tax rates, even if they're not paying that 6.2% in Social Security, with Medicare being a little bit higher, their real increase in pay is actually 21,500. So again, very close to being half of what the 40,000 looks like. So if in the back of your mind, you're thinking like, I'm going to find some ways to spend pretty close to $40,000. Well, you definitely don't want to get that close without actually hurting yourself financially and it being a detriment if this bonus has caused you to spend more money than you typically would have because of you think and feel like it should go a little bit further. Unfortunately, it doesn't. And so that's why I created this, just to give you that clarity and transparency into, well, what is the real situation? Now you can have more control and understanding of, well, how can you put this 21,500 in this example to best use? So whatever that real increase is for you, how are you going to best decide to use that? What goals, what things of high value are worth it to you? And yeah, good luck. Let me know if you need any assistance. Nonprofit sponsors were provided ad space at no charge. I think they're awesome and I wanted to provide them a platform to spread awareness about the great work that they do.
Thank you so much for listening to Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp. You can find show notes by visiting levelupfinancialplanning.com and finding the podcast page. You'll also be able to find strategy guides, videos, and cheat sheets to help you take your financial confidence to the next level. If you feel this episode has added a ton of value for you, please rate and share this with friends and colleagues. Catch you next time on Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp.